What's up with daughters being estranged from their mothers?
Parenting doesn't come with a manual. There's no written pages. You learn by trial and error. But an adult child who continues to ask for the love that you didn't provide for them, and they are traumatized by their adulthood or their childhood, can we just say see ya?
I want to talk directly to the estranged parents, not the quacked therapists, and not you wacky adult children in the back section.
When we decided to have a child, we decided to have a child. Not specifically you.
There's been a rise of estranged parents coming to websites like TikTok to complain about their children for going no contact, blaming things like social media, therapists, as well as it being a trend for their kids no longer talking to them.
I'm talking about the mass wave of adult children who's jumped on the trend of cut off your parents and calling it self-care.
You know, pretty much blaming anything except for themselves.
But you couple that with social media now and therapy, which it's all about validation, right? So if we have any discomfort, then we've got to either cut it out or we have to take care of it, but it's not about becoming resilient to it.
Today, we're going to take a look at a few of these TikTok accounts that are continuously complaining about not only their children, but children who go no contact as a whole. And before we continue, I would like to say, please do not send any harassment, hatred, or anything negative towards anybody we have to talk about today. The point of this is to give constructive criticism and possibly start a discussion on why it's more important than people realize to reflect on things, instead of lashing out at their kids through social media. A lot of the parents that we are going to be talking about today do not seem very self-aware and seem like, in my opinion, that it's kind of like a no-brainer on why their kids probably don't talk to them. But I want to try my best to come at this from a perspective of some kind of understanding, potentially, but it's really, I'm going to be honest, really difficult in this situation. I have been extremely sick. I've had strep throat, and I'm finally getting over it. Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Bellesa. Friends of the channel, Bellesa and I are partnering up to send out free toys or gift cards for toys to everyone who signs up for my giveaway. Your ears did not deceive you. You heard that correctly. Everybody who signs up using my link in the description below will receive a free spicy toy or a gift card for one. Bellesa takes pride in being a sexual wellness brand, with their focus being on empowering everyone to explore themselves without any shame or guilt. Not only that, but to embrace all parts of yourself unapologetically. Speaking of which, Bellesa has several different options for several different needs, such as the Air Vibe, which has 5 different speeds, the Pebble, which is built to fit perfectly within your hand and has ditched any annoying pattern modes, and the Thump, which is a jack of all trades, if you will. There are many other options for you to choose from as well. Bellesa's toys are made with medical grade silicone and come in discreet yet colorful packaging. Shipping is also discreet, so your roommates, neighbors, or anybody else is not going to know your business once your package arrives at your door. By the way, Bellesa also has your back with an unmatched warranty program, providing 1-year no-hassle replacements for any defective products, and a 10-year quality warranty which provides you a 50% discount that can be used towards any Bellesa product if you have any issues with your items after that 1-year window. So if you're interested in treating yourself, check out my link in the description below, because you deserve to embrace all parts of yourself. And don't forget, everybody who uses my link in the description below to sign up will receive a free toy or a gift card towards one. Thank you so much to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video, and with that being said, let's get back into today's topic. I think it's also important to share the perspectives of people who have decided to cut their parents off, because I personally am not estranged from my own parents, but I know people who are, and I also have seen many people share their experience online. One person even being Tana Mojo. Whether or not you like her content or agree with anything she ever says, she does share a story about her own estrangement with her parents and how badly that had affected her.
No one ever wants to go no contact with their own family. You are only going to go no contact with your own family if it is your absolute last resort. If you feel like you have tried everything under the sun. And you, like, it eventually gets to a point where you realize, like, this is gonna me, or I have to do this, and both suck. You know what I mean? Like, knowing that there's no solution with the people that literally birthed you, or never speaking to them again for your own peace. Like, both have their awful caveats, but for me, no doubt, I knew that I had to do it to save my mental health and save myself and break generational curses and all of the things, right?
And by no means is Tana the only creator out there who has shared their experience. Many people have shared an experience very similar, and it's really, really sad to see.
I would not wish being an adult child estranged from your parent on my worst enemy. And if you talk to any adult children who are estranged from their parents or parent, they will most likely tell you that it was death by 1,000 cuts. We did not wake up one day and randomly decide that we're going to cut our parent out of our life.
All of this to say that by no means do I think it's appropriate at all to call something like this a trend, because making a decision like this is very devastating. This is not something that people just decide on a whim because they see everybody on TikTok doing it. However, for some reason, a lot of parents are coming to social media with that particular idea in mind, that their kids are just doing this as a trend or because they talk to their therapist. So I've actually discussed a TikToker that I will be bringing up again later in today's video, known as Doormat Mom. I talked about her around a year ago, and she just seemed like a delight. Somebody who really just loves her kids.
I decided not to hang up one of my adult child stockings this year. Yeah, I still did them. And I decided not to hang hers up, not because I'm warning the adult child whose behavior resulted in our estrangement. I'm warning the adult child who I thought she was.
I personally can't see why somebody would want to cut contact with this person in particular. That was sarcasm, if you couldn't tell.
There are a lot of really good parents out there who did everything that they could, and yet their kids are ungrateful little.
Since then, it seems that this has extended beyond just this creator herself. A lot of backlash had stirred around her in particular, but there have been many other moms who have come out and talked about this trend of adult children, which I hate that term. I don't know why. It sounds condescending in my opinion. I wish there was another way to describe it, but adult children going no contact being a trend.
You know what I've been thinking? This whole estrangement thing, it's not just personal anymore. It's a full-blown epidemic.
99% of children, or adult children, are not going to just be like, all my friends are cutting off their parents, maybe I should do the same thing, and then do it on a whim some random Tuesday with no rhyme or reason behind it, and they're doing it because it's a trend. This isn't something like a TikTok dance or a new sense of style or anything like that. This is something that is very brutal, actually, and many people have actually come out and explained how devastating it is to cut off somebody you love, especially a parent who is somebody who society tells you is supposed to love you unconditionally and provide you with the safety and care that you've needed growing up. This is something that the majority of people who decide to do this are doing this with a lot of consideration, a lot on the table, and a lot of pain behind it.
Your millennial child going no contact with you isn't because they're ungrateful, you fed and watered them for 18 years. It's because they told you 100 times what hurt them, and instead of listening, you played victim, became emotionally abusive, and then they had to set a boundary to protect themselves the way you wouldn't protect them. Who said that?
Silent Hill is a franchise that is very precious to me. I'm not crazy about the two newest movies, but the first one I liked a lot. In the end of that movie, there was this line that was repeated, "Mother is God in the eyes of a child."
Have you seen a little girl?
Wait a minute, that's not the right clip.
Mother is God in the eyes of a child.
Many have pointed out that this quote actually traces back to a novelist known as William Makepeace Thackeray, and that original quote is, "Mother is the name for God in the lips and the hearts of little children." I kind of like the other version better, actually, so I'm just gonna stick with that for my analogy here. And listen, you don't even have to have any religious beliefs to understand what this quote is trying to say, which is basically the role of a mother is very precious to a child. It is something unlike most other relationships you will form in your life. This is the person who gave birth to you, the person who decided to take on the role of being your caretaker, the one who is supposed to protect you, make you feel safe and loved and cared for. Most people naturally are going to desire a positive relationship with their parents, especially their mothers. Unfortunately, not every person should be a parent, in my opinion. And there are many out there who treat their children so poorly that when their children become adults and can think for themselves and have their own autonomy, if they were treated horribly as a child, they may decide to go against every instinct they might have to stay and separate themselves from their parent who caused that harm. So to minimize this by so many people calling it a trend already puts a bad taste in my mouth. But to go into this further, it's not just Doormat Mom calling this a trend. As I had mentioned, more and more disgruntled parents are coming out after being cut from their adult children's lives. I'm trying to think of a better way to put it, but their kids' lives, and they want nothing to do with them, and they end up coming out on social media talking about it, and in a lot of ways spewing hypocrisies of their own that they don't even see because they lack the self-awareness to do so, in my opinion. Starting with this, which we have opened the video with.
So what's up? What's up with daughters being estranged from their mothers?
One thing you're going to see repetitively in today's video are people who are blaming therapists and therapy for the reason why their children don't want to talk to them anymore.
Adult daughters. I'm noticing this trend in my business where daughters go to therapy and then they end up setting these really strong boundaries with their parents and then threatening not to see them. And I'm like, why? Why is this happening?
Threatening not to see them. You have to get to a very, very severe point to make a decision like this in most cases. I would like to imagine that most of the parents that are going to be shown in today's video probably will not see a humble reconnection with their children, considering they go right to social media and start complaining about them and humiliating them. And in most cases, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen one adult child from any of these people that we're talking about come out and say, hey, that's my mom blasting me on social media, which really goes to show that, in my opinion, this is just another form of control.
I get that we all have childhood trauma and wounds, but I also get that that's our responsibility to take care of them. And
if your kids have childhood trauma and that's the reason why they're cutting you off, that's your fault. That's your fault. If you're giving them childhood trauma, if you traumatize them during their childhood while you were raising them, that's not their fault. What the hell?
I also get that that's our responsibility to take care of them and not project that onto our parents.
Projecting it onto the parents.
Most of the time, and I'm not saying this is all the time, because I know that there are parents out there that are just not worthy of having the presence of their kids because they were that bad. And so, but the parents I'm talking to, and it's been a lot this last year.
This is another thing you are going to see over and over, is that 90% of the people we talk about today, they understand that there are very severe cases of physical and or mental abuse, right? But they never consider themselves to be in that pool of people. It tries to remove them and say, we're better than the really bad parents that have been estranged. We're being estranged because of less serious reasons and we don't deserve it. We're the victims in this situation, as they're like complaining about it on TikTok and humiliating their kids.
The parents I'm talking to, the punishment of estrangement doesn't seem to fit the crime of them just, I don't know, little things like not being able to maybe honor boundaries just a little bit. Like everything seems to have to be like this or you're kicked out.
Estrangement isn't a punishment. Estrangement is more times than not done as a last resort to protect the individual, their mental health, their physical health sometimes, and their well-being, because they have tried so many different options that did not work with their parents. If you treat somebody badly enough to where they have a close relationship with you but are willing to give that relationship up just to protect themselves, they have every right to do that if they wish. When they are an adult, you do not own them. They are not your property. They are not somebody who owes you everything because you decided to have them. You were the adult who decided to have children and take on the responsibility for them. They hate that they don't have the control over them that they did when they were children, because children don't have as much control as adults do.
Can we stop letting these grown-ass adult children guilt trip y'all? Gaslight you? Stop it. Just stop.
Ma'am, I know you're already sitting down, but I'm going to need you to get up and sit down again, please, and maybe take a few steps back when you do.
If you did everything you could, you know damn well you gave them everything you could, you provided for them any way you could, you sacrificed everything possible that you could.
I loathe when a parent will weaponize the responsibilities that they had as a parent against their children when they get older later in life. Man, did I have to give up my freedoms to take care of her? I had to spend money on her for food and diapers and clothing, and that was a lot for me to sacrifice. I had to be a parent. I had to be there. I had to do these things. That's what you signed up for. You decided to have the kids. They do not owe you for that. That is a transactional relationship that you're creating to try and make it seem like you've done all of this stuff and now they owe you. They came into this world because of you. They came into this world because you decided you wanted kids.
And you did for them, and they want to come back at this. Oh, I'm so traumatized because I was disciplined, or I'm so traumatized by blah, 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 blah. Really?
If your child comes up to you and says, what you did traumatized me, and your response is that, that's manipulative, that's abusive, and that's just absolutely dismissive. A parent who actually cared would be like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I didn't handle that in a way that made you feel safe. Please explain to me more so I never do that again. Or if they're older and, what can I do to repair this? If there's nothing I can do, I just want you to know I deeply regret that and I'm sorry. Not the, well, I give you everything I could.
Then it's time for you to go on about your life. See ya.
Bye!
There's one thing I've learned about these adult children.
There is something bitter about that.
Is they want to be adults, but they want to act like children.
Again, this lady seems very bitter, and honestly, I could spend another 20 minutes just talking about these two TikToks alone. We have so much more to get into.
Dear grown kids, hi, it's your favorite villain.
This is another TikToker who has a whole page dedicated towards estrangement.
I've been reading hundreds of comments from parents on this page. Do you know what keeps coming up? I changed my will today. I'm spending every last penny. They'll be shocked when they find out. And honestly, I understand why some people feel that way.
I changed my will. Like, it's obvious that this is done in the form of a punishment and not in a form of, you know what, things aren't going well between us, let me really think this through. This is something to get back at whoever went no contact. And again, in my opinion, a lot of these TikTok accounts wouldn't exist if it wasn't for another way to try and jab at their no contact kids.
You don't get to disappear from someone's life for years telling everyone how horrible they are.
Oh, they disappeared from my life and told everybody that I was a bad parent. Meanwhile, again, it's so hard to find out who the children of these TikTokers making these videos are. They don't seem to be going on, I wanted to say Facebook, TikTok, or any other platform doing what their parents are doing to them. Their parents are the ones talking about how horrible it is that they were cut off and that they were greedy for taking advantage of all their sacrifices and then just leaving. You're the one going online telling everybody this.
Refusing their phone calls, skipping holidays, keeping the grandchildren away from them, and treating them like they no longer exist.
You do not own your children and you do not own their children. These are people. They are not possessions that belong to you. They are not your property. When you have children that rely on you until they are of 18, you are responsible for them and you are their legal guardian and have to make decisions for them, but they are still not your property in the sense of, well, I gave birth to you, so you're supposed to bend to every request and demand I have, even into adulthood. There is no guarantee that having a child means that when they reach adulthood, they will be there. Ideally, of course, you would love to be there. And obviously, even if somebody is in the wrong, of course, that's their child. They're going to feel hurt when they are cut off. But the idea, or I guess the hope, would be that they would take that hurt, go to therapy, learn from it, try to grow, and try to repair a relationship in a healthy way. Not by going on TikTok and putting your kids on blast, making them feel worse than they already do.
And then suddenly expect to be remembered when it's time to divide up the estate? An inheritance isn't owed because you share DNA. It's something another human being chooses to leave behind.
Like I mentioned, a lot of consideration is often taken when it comes to making a decision on whether or not to cut contact with somebody. I'm sure any offspring of somebody who has a will that decided, you know what, I'm going to go no contact with them, I'm sure they have considered the fact that they would not be part of the will. That's kind of an obvious thing, and I'm sure that is the least of their concerns.
At some point, some of us stop asking, how do I get my child back? And we start asking, how much more of this shit am I supposed to take?
Yeah, this sounds like somebody who's healing and really trying to work on themselves and figure out what went wrong to try and fix that relationship.
Dear no contact kid, these are the things we're no longer going to do.
This is a TikTok that really gets to me because this one, she's not as outraged as some of the previous videos we've seen, but her beliefs and the way that she thinks structure in the family should be even after a person becomes an adult greatly disturbed me, because this is what I mean by some parents just think that they own their child for their entire life.
We're no longer allowing you to shut down conversations the moment they get uncomfortable.
Okay, so you're basically saying that if you're berating your kid, your adult child, whatever you want to call them, you're not going to allow them to leave in that situation. That's how I'm seeing it. You're not going to let them leave a situation they're uncomfortable with.
We're no longer allowing you to call us a victim or a villain.
Okay, yeah, I don't think they would call you a victim, because I think they would be the victims in that situation, not you.
We're no longer allowing you to rewrite history.
This sounds very much like, oh, you gave me trauma, and then the parent's like, I don't remember doing that. That never happened. You're misremembering. You're rewriting history. That never took place. Invalidating their experiences.
And we're no longer caring who you tell your lies to.
Again, immediately dismissing, saying everything that their children have said is lies.
And these are our demands.
Demands! I don't think you're in the position to be making demands. A lot of people have issues with control in this situation, it seems. And this is a good example of it. It sounds like this lady wants to control the person who cut her off. Sorry, my throat was itchy. And is making demands?
We do not. No, we do. We do have feelings.
She had to correct herself on whether or not she had feelings.
And we will say that hurt my feelings.
You could say it hurt your feelings that your child cut you off. I think a lot of people are coming from a place of hurt when making these videos. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make it healthy. And that definitely doesn't make things better. But I think that it can come from a place of hurt. But what did you do to hurt your child to the point where they felt the need to do this in the first place?
We will not be silenced in our family. We expect conversations, not shutdowns.
You expect conversations, not shutdowns. So again, you're not giving anybody a way out. You are demanding them to be there, it sounds like. This is how I'm taking it. Maybe I'm wrong. Is it that you expect conversations, or do you expect a lecture?
We expect accountabilities to go both ways, and we expect to be spoken to with respect, and we will do the same.
Yeah, though it doesn't seem like in most cases that happens, because if you decide to treat somebody respectfully, this situation wouldn't even be a situation in the first place. I think it's just a lack of self-awareness for a lot of parents that they think that their children owe them respect and all of these things, even in adulthood, but they get to treat them how they want.
We are the parents of this family structure, and there is a hierarchy.
If you are a parent of an adult, if you are a parent of somebody who is capable of making their own adult decisions, you're not a queen on a throne. You are not somebody who owns your children like a product. They are human beings that are living their own lives separate from yours. And as a parent who cares about their children, that is something that actually should be respected. Am I crazy for that? Am I crazy for thinking that, you know, as an adult, you should be treated like a whole human being and not some servant or some sort of extension of who your parents are, to the point where if you're not meeting their demands, they're going to treat you a certain way and expect you to just not walk away from that because they think that they can control you?
And that role does not get erased.
Ending that with "that role does not get erased," to me, that sounds like she's saying, this is how it's always going to be. No matter what age you are, your life is mine until the day I die. That is not what having kids is or should be about. She makes another video, though, and this one cracks me up. There's a text at the top of the screen that says, "These are not the same kids you raised." They literally are. Okay, they are literally the same people that came out of you. They just turned into a whole ass adult and developed their own personality, ideals, and feelings that you can no longer control.
Listen, these are not the kids you raised. Sometimes the hardest part of estrangement is realizing just that these are not the same kids that you raised. You remember the child who laughed with you, who ran into your arms, who trusted you, who you held, who needed you. You remember the years spent teaching them kindness, responsibility, respect, and love for family. And then one day you're standing in front of them and you see someone who is speaking to you with contempt, distance, or indifference. And it feels like you're looking at a stranger wearing your child's face.
Yeah, they're an adult. They have their own personalities and experiences. And I feel like I'm repeating myself for the 10th time here. Like, they can make their own decisions. They have their own responsibilities. They have their own lives, their careers, their goals and dreams. That is something that you do not have a say in after a period of time. Having a bond with your child and allowing them to grow up and become their own person does not mean they're going to fit this mold that you might have expected them to fit into. Now, I know I mentioned Doormat Mom earlier in this video. I'm not going to play a lot of clips from her because I already made an entire video on her and we really don't need to go back down that rabbit hole. But there was one video that I really wanted to show that really has left me flabbergasted. It just left me completely speechless when I first saw this video, and I need to share it with you because this might be one of the craziest ones I have seen so far.
We didn't ask to be born. Well, if you really want to split hairs, we didn't ask to have you.
My first thought when seeing this, before hearing what she has to say next, is, you literally did decide to have a child. But wait, that might not be what she means. Might be a little worse than that.
When we decided to have a child, we decided to have a child. Not specifically you.
Yeah, she hates her kid. Who says this? Genuinely, who puts the camera on? Again, go watch my previous video on Doormat Mom. There's a lot. She wrote a whole book about her estrangement, puts her whole kid on blast, but like, we didn't ask for you? That's crazy. Like, that's actually probably one of the most venomous things I've heard a parent say. That is so cruel, truly. And with her shit-eating grin as she's saying that, she knows that she's doing that to be hurtful. So the next creator we have to talk about is the inspiration for today's video. At first, I thought this was just a TikToker, and then I found out that she also does podcasts. And when I found the podcast, I didn't even realize at first that it was the same person who's making the TikTok. I had to look into it just a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's the same lady. This is Candi. And well, we know a little bit about Candi, and there's actually a little bit of information about Candi, more of a backstory than these other TikTokers who I have discussed up to this point. A big thank you to this creator here diving into this a little bit, because Candi will have you believing that she is another parent that has been unjustifiably cut out, and she realizes she did a few things wrong but doesn't really go into the details of what she had done wrong, and is very upset that she still doesn't have contact with one of her children. We'll get into the rest later. It seems like there's actually a pretty probable reason for that. But let's get into some of her videos now.
You know what I've been thinking? This whole estrangement thing, it's not just personal anymore. It's a full-blown epidemic. And no, I'm not talking about the handful of kids who truly had abusive parents. I'm talking about the mass wave of adult children who's jumped on the trend of cut off your parents and calling it self-care.
Now, Candi thinks that it's a complete epidemic that people are becoming estranged from their parents. My perspective is that we're just seeing it more because everything's on social media now, and there seems to be a growing community of estranged parents that wasn't really discussed in previous years. But I have seen family members, friends, several people for years that I know personally, not just online, go through things like this. And it's not something that just popped up overnight within the past year or so. Is it possible that social media can have an impact on people's decisions? Maybe, because maybe people feel a little more empowered seeing other people go through this, taking the courage to be like, maybe this is something I should consider. Maybe it's something that they hadn't even thought about before. But that doesn't mean that it's a trend. I don't like that word, and I also don't like the epidemic word. Like this is some sort of crazy thing that's happening and we gotta protect your kids from being estranged from you.
Back in the day, families could have problems. People could get mad. People could stop talking for a while.
We're going to talk to her the way that her and everybody else we've shared so far in these TikTok videos condescendingly talk to their adult children. And what I have to say is it's not back in your day anymore. It's 2026. It's time to grow up.
But it did not come with this level of chaos, performance, disrespect, public displays, humiliation.
You mean the level of chaos you're bringing to TikTok by putting your adult child on blast and humiliating them?
There was no social media stage.
You're using social media right now to do the same thing you were just talking about, humiliating people.
And there was no cheering section.
You sure have a cheering section both in your comments and on your, a Facebook group? You would be surprised how many people actively support her, even after the things we're going to get into in a moment.
There was no making sure outsiders got involved so they could dogpile a parent or a grandparent.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure that any negative thing we do as a family stays in the family and that nobody knows, so that way they can't criticize us, because what we really want to do is try and avoid anything that might be perceived as a threat to our dynamic. It's very unfortunate that police records are public.
There was no fiance or girlfriend or random internet stranger feeling bold enough to call elders filthy names and act like that's normal.
Is she one of those parents that gets upset about the fact that her son found somebody that wasn't her to take care of him for the rest of his life?
And let me say this too, back in the day, if someone crossed a line like that, somebody in the family would have checked them fast.
Yeah, so that family dynamic thing that I mentioned a few moments ago, where basically anything from the outside that is perceived as a threat, well, it's the same thing if anybody within the family is perceived as a threat, which could be as small as having a different opinion than them. And if anybody is in that position, they're going to make sure that they get severely punished for stepping out of line, because how dare you point out anything that might be negative in this situation? We're going to make sure that the rest of the family reinforces that their ideas are okay and whatever you're thinking isn't.
And as always, I'm not talking about grandparents who are dangerous. I'm not talking about people who are actively hurting you or putting you or your children in harm's way. As always, I'm not talking about them, and you know it.
I still love when they bring this up. We're not talking about the really dangerous parents or grandparents. We're not talking about the worst of the worst. We're just talking about ourselves in an indirect way and separating ourselves from the worst people we could possibly think of, even though what we did was still really bad. It makes us feel better and feel like we're better than that, and justifies us complaining about our children that don't want to talk to us anymore.
I'm talking about the families where the grandparents were removed because there was an argument, a disagreement, politics, religion.
I think it's extremely valid to distance yourself from somebody who has a completely different political belief than you, and possibly religious belief, depending on if those religious beliefs bring harm to other people. And I want to make it abundantly clear, I don't believe every person with a religion is hateful or harmful, but I do believe that there are some people out there that use their religion to be hateful towards groups of people that absolutely don't deserve it. And sorry if you disagree with that wholeheartedly, you can write my words down and wipe your ass with it.
Old hurt, a hard conversation, something that happened years ago that nobody can understand how to get past.
A hard conversation that nobody can understand how to get past. Sounds like a pretty valid reason to stop talking to somebody, doesn't it? There's plenty of other TikToks that we could pick through here, but this has gone on for a while. The last one I want to add in is what I added into the very beginning of this video, which is just a clip of her talking down on therapists, talking down on quote-unquote adult children.
I want to talk directly to the estranged parents, not the quacked therapists, and not you wacky adult children in the back section.
Which, by the way, isn't everybody who is an adult walking this planet an adult child? Because they're somebody's child. Somebody had them, right? They were born. So wouldn't that make Candi an adult child as well? Or are we only calling the people who go no contact with their parents an adult child? So as I mentioned, Candi does have a podcast. There's a couple episodes that I want to look at. We're not going to go over the whole thing, just a few clips from a few episodes, and I want to get into her introduction episode where she goes into a little bit about her experience. Remember how I said that she kind of dives into a little bit? She then has an episode where she brings on one of the previous TikTokers I've talked about a little bit ago, earlier in this video, and that's something. And then there's one other clip where it was actually the first podcast clip that I saw from her, and she sounded a lot more rational than she does in the TikToks. It's almost like there's like two different personas, and in the podcast version, she's a lot more calm and collected, and on the TikToks, she's a lot more reactionary and angry, I guess. I don't really just want to use the word angry. She has a sharper tongue on the TikTok app than she does in long-form content. But before all of that, let's take a look at a few of these clips and go from there.
My name is Candi. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I have 4 children. I gave birth to 4 children. One of my children did leave this world at the young age of 28 a few years ago. I have an estranged son. Those are my 2 middle children.
So Candi introduces herself and immediately shares that one of her children have unfortunately passed away a few years ago. I'm not going to share any speculation or thoughts on that. I feel that is inappropriate. So I'm going to continue and share that she seems to be no contact with one son and still has contact with 2 daughters that she calls bookend girls.
I have bookend girls, an older daughter and the youngest daughter, who are very much in my life, love me for who I am, and we have a fantastic relationship.
Let me know if I'm nitpicking a little bit too much here, but when she says they love me for who I am and referring to the 2 daughters that still talk to her, does that sound like a jab or is it just me?
I have an education, which really doesn't mean a lot today. I'm a life coach, which I hope to someday do a lot more work with.
It baffles me that this is somebody who is a life coach while actively using her platform to not just make TikToks, but a podcast bashing children who go no contact with their parents because her son went no contact with her.
And I have lived a lot of life, and I have a lot to offer. The estrangement is just a part of my life.
She shares that she has had a lot of life that she's lived and that estrangement is only part of her life, yet it seems to swallow her entire social media presence.
And I want you to know that while I won't go into super great detail about why I'm estranged from my son,
it's okay. The internet kind of did some sleuthing and figured out a few loose ends that may or may not be related to that estrangement. I can't tell you for sure whether or not it is, but what I can say is that in a moment we're going to get into some pretty dark stuff.
I do want you to know, and I'm going to be transparent and always have been, that I am part of the group of parents who do know that they had a role in their estrangement.
This is basically what I mentioned earlier, where there's some parents who will briefly and vaguely mention that, oh, I did make some mistakes, there were problems on my end, but they don't go into any details. Whether or not those details may be very crucial
Period. End of story. There was many years of my parenting that I had no clue what I was doing, and I messed up. I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done, wished I could have known to do things I should have done, and I didn't. And that affected my kids. End of story.
And that is about the most she will mention how much her actions have affected her children, because her children, or I guess one of her children, distancing themselves from her is way worse.
Now, intent is not the same as impact. I understand that. I had impactful situations that unfortunately is where my son keeps me frozen.
And this is exactly what I mean. She acknowledges that she has made mistakes, but when it comes to being held accountable or being held responsible, because they hate the word accountability, a lot of the people that I'm mentioning today, she turns it right back around and says, well, my son is holding me frozen. I'm going to let the next clip play out before I have to share the rest of that thought.
While I was able to grow as a person, educationally, spiritually, physically, every way possible, I became a much better person overall, which then bled into every other aspect of me and my life. And unfortunately, my son can't accept any of those roles. He's got me stuck and frozen.
She repeats that her son has her frozen, and also says that she has been stuck after changing so much and working really hard on herself. The thing is, you are not guaranteed forgiveness from something you've done because you've changed. You're not entitled to that either. And that's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, not just estranged parents. Sometimes what you do hurts somebody so much that even if you fix all other aspects of your life, there's damage that will not be repaired. Or if it is repaired, it's going to take a really long time for that person to accept things. And making a whole podcast, putting your son on blast for keeping you frozen, not forgiving you, still being estranged from you, and then making these TikToks that seem much more aggressive, yeah, maybe you need to do a little bit more work on this change that you're talking about and the growth that you're talking about.
So that, in a nutshell, without telling you the deep dive into our story, is why I'm estranged from my son. I also am estranged from my granddaughter. I had a 4.5-year relationship with her, and that was ended when my son decided 4 years ago to end his relationship with me.
She ends this part of her podcast talking about how not only is she estranged from her son, but her son's daughter, her granddaughter. And yeah, when you have a child that decides they don't want to be in contact with you anymore, that will likely extend to their children. It's very sad. But if the damage is severe enough that your child felt the need to completely cut contact with you in the first place, chances are they probably don't trust you with their children either. We're going to get into some details about Candi's past in a moment, because it's been brought up a lot underneath the comments of her YouTube and TikTok videos, which have led me to a particular video that I'll be referencing in a moment. But I want to share a little bit more from her other podcasts first, because once we dive into the deeper roots of this, I don't think we could just circle back to some of the other unrelated things.
Not only estranged parents are going to watch this podcast. We already know that. I've been through this before. We're going to have other people who want to criticize me.
Going through this particular podcast episode more, she talks about not only estranged parents are going to be watching this podcast, talking about how there's going to be people, likely critics and detractors of hers, possibly some being estranged children themselves or no contact children, people that don't talk to their parents, are likely going to be seeing this as well. Because, yeah, she has cultivated an audience that really enjoys her content, but with that, she has also cultivated a following of people who very much disagree with what she has to say, and this has been going on for quite some time. And while self-awareness is not most of the estranged parents on TikTok's strong point, she does seem to have awareness of this at least. Now, instead of playing the entire clip, if you really want to see it, it is still up on her YouTube channel. I don't know if I'll link it or not. Usually I do link all of the things I discuss and share, but I don't want anybody sending any hate or harassment to this person. This video is to critique. That being said, she talks about the initial reaction of wanting to reach out and sending emails and trying to contact her son over and over again, and sharing with other parents who might be in the same boat the desire to do so and why it might not be a good idea. She talks about sending hundreds of emails to her son after he decided to cut her off.
I am embarrassed. Hundreds. hundreds of emails, hundreds of texts. And I'm also a little embarrassed of some of the things that I said in them too. Let's face it. I already mentioned that anger can be part of this. Some of the begging is the pleading, and I just want you to remember this, and do you remember that? I remember some of the texts that I went through were like, hey, if I just mentioned this one memory to him, this really, really good memory, maybe it'll somehow trigger a good memory in him, and he'll be like, hey, yeah, my mom's right. Yeah, just let me respond to this one. Yeah, no. But I tried.
She talks about begging and pleading and being angry in some of these messages and emails, and then she also brings up that she tried to lure him back in with some good memories and trying to reminisce on them, which definitely isn't manipulative or tactical at all. That was also sarcastic. And instead of saying this is something she regrets because it would negatively affect her son, this is what she has to say instead.
This phase can damage so much of you. A lot of parents can't get out of it. I want you to understand that I don't want you to be ashamed of it. I just want you to know that it's a pretty natural part of the estrangement for a lot of parents. But what this begging will do is it will wear your dignity down.
Forget what it will do to your children. What it will do to you is wear down your dignity. That's the priority. That's the issue. I can't imagine why your children don't want to talk to you if this is your mindset, because you're being selfish. You're putting yourself first. You're not thinking about how it's going to make your child, who obviously decided to take steps away from you for a reason. You're not imagining what it's going to do to them. Sitting with that for a moment and trying to understand why this happened in the first place is probably going to spare you a lot more dignity than just refraining from texting for the sake of feeling embarrassed about it later. That shouldn't be the reason or the purpose that you're not texting them. The reason should be that you're going to give them the space that they asked for. How much growing and changing did we actually do in this situation?
If you have an adult child that says leave them alone and stop messaging them, I want you to consider doing exactly that, because this begging phase, it matters. It can hurt you in so many ways. And some of that, again, can hurt you so badly that you lose sight of everything.
She doubles down and says it again, that this really matters because of what it's going to do to you. Not what it's going to do to your kids that need space from you, what it's going to do to you. I said what I needed to say in my previous clip. To prevent sounding redundant, just if you need to, rewind like 30 seconds. I have the same thoughts. So here is another clip from a different podcast episode where she talks about why can't we have an option of low contact, where maybe we only talk once a month or through holidays, or only seeing each other a couple hours instead of several hours.
Why can't we have low contact? Why can't there be a situation where you have a conflict between an adult estranged child and a parent, and maybe they can't see 100% eye to eye, but they can come up with guidelines. They can come up with, I don't like the word rules, but they can come up with these ideas that make sure that both are respected. And maybe it's putting in fences. Maybe it's things like we'll only see each other one time a month, or we're gonna text, one time a week.
On paper, it sounds like a possibly good option for some people, and to be honest, there's probably a lot of people that do this method, and it works for them. If you are deciding to go no contact with a parent, usually you have expressed any and all possible options, likely including something similar to this, which is probably why they didn't consider it. And to prove my point further, after she says all of this is what she has to say like 10 seconds later in the same podcast clip.
So I'm going to talk directly to you parents as an estranged parent. If your child offers low contact, I encourage you. It might feel like an insult, especially if, let's just say that they've been silent for a very long time and then they come back and they're offering low contact. Consider it. Maybe think of it not as an insult, because I might think of it as like, are you kidding me? You've been gone for 4 years and now you want this low contact with all these rules.
So she was the person who literally just brought this entire idea to the table. She introduced this idea as a possibility for some estranged parents out there to attempt with their kids. Why would you then be upset about it if your kid decided to bring this idea to you? Why would you feel insulted? It was literally your okay. Anyway, the reaction she creates from this situation that I get the feeling didn't even happen because of the way she worded it. It sounds like a hypothetical situation she made up, but I could be wrong. Tells me everything I need to know as to why her kid probably didn't attempt this or probably didn't want to attempt this, and why other estranged parents will probably have the same situation with their kids. Because it's not about having less contact with your child or no contact with your child. It's about feeling offended that you aren't given the amount of control that you want.
I don't know. Think about it. Think about maybe involving a professional and discussing how that might look if they offer a text. Maybe don't respond with the 14 paragraph dump on that.
She also then recommends not sending a 14 paragraph dump on them, and also suggests professional help, which I personally would agree with, but isn't she against things like therapy?
I want to talk directly to the estranged parents, not the quacked therapists.
Speaking of which, she has another podcast episode. I'm not going to play much of it, just one small snippet to further my point here. With a person we've already discussed earlier in today's video. They have collaborated in a podcast episode, and she's going off on social media and therapy and so many other things about this trend of no contact. And I just thought I'd share it with you, and then we're going to get into some information that's been circulating online.
But you couple that with social media now and therapy, which it's all about validation, right? So if we have any discomfort, then we've got to either cut it out or we have to take care of it. But it's not about becoming resilient to it, like building ourselves up and strengthening ourselves. So I think between the parenting style, social media, and the role of therapy, I think it's just become the perfect storm for estrangement.
So yeah, as I had mentioned, both of these people seem to be not too favorable of therapy, at least when it comes to the idea that it's related to their children going no contact with them. I can go on and on about this particular detail, but I'm going to sound like a broken record. The purpose of me adding this in is, again, to contradict what Candi had previously said about bringing in professionals to help with having low contact. Like, we have to choose, is therapy good or not? Are professionals, when it comes to counseling, good or not? Because it's all kind of in the same sphere. And yeah, therapy can't just be beneficial when you need it to benefit you, but not other people. But that kind of seems to be the mindset that they have in general, that the only time things should be acceptable is when it benefits them, and they don't necessarily care as much for the people around them. That's just my opinion, but to back that opinion up, their kids decided to go no contact with them, and I'm sure that was for a reason. Anyway, let's take a break from the podcast clips. Let's take a break from the TikToks, because there is something a lot more sinister that I have found when looking into all of this. This person in particular was the inspiration for this video because I saw a lot of her clips and was just baffled by what she had to say. But what I was not expecting was to do a deeper dive into this person in particular, because this was really just going to be about the idea that going no contact is a trend, and entitled parents that have estranged children lashing out online, making things worse, and why that's actually problematic. But underneath a lot of her videos and TikToks are comments asking some pretty cryptic things, talking about her previous marriages, talking about some really disturbing accusations, and I was really confused, but somebody had actually commented, if I can go back and find it, I'll leave a screenshot. Somebody left a comment with a link to a video. It led to a video by a creator known as RayLikeSunshine. RayLikeSunshine had done his own full deep dive on Candi and talked about a lot more than just her viewpoints as an estranged parent. Let's actually take a look at that.
I found this obscure one-off Reddit post that was talking about the supposed drama between her and something.
RayLikeSunshine does read this out in his video, but I also want to read this myself so we can go over this together. There's a comment from a Reddit post that states, Candi has been married 4 times, 2 times to 2 separate registered sex offenders that assaulted her son and nephew. Before we continue, I do want to say these are accusations. She's been called out in the past week for all of this. She also used to work in social services, which is alarming. Since being called out, she has made a post mocking her nephew for sharing his story and has replied to comments very sarcastically about loving PDFs. Somebody else replied to this comment stating, "Yeah, that was my doing. I posted a video on Facebook that shows the exact search because people thought it was fake. For some reason, it's not uploading to TikTok." A response to that comment by the original commenter says, "We've probably crossed paths on estrangement pages, lol. I reported her to DHHS today."
Candi Morris is, as I said, very active on Facebook and has a public profile. So I went ahead and searched her Facebook and it says,
So I'm not going to give any personal identifying information on this channel. He gives a little bit more information than I feel comfortable sharing here, and I do want to credit him, and I am going to be placing his video in the description of mine because he did the hard work to find this out. For the sake of this video and legalities, I'm still going to say these are accusations, but what RayLikeSunshine had found out was by searching through Candi's Facebook, he had basically backtracked all the way to her first 2 marriages and lined up the last names with those people to some police records, and it showed that, yeah, they were arrested and on a registry.
if we go over to the sex offender registry list, we can see that there is, oh shit, Gregory Franston, and oh no, Dennis Howard, both in Omaha, Nebraska. Seems like this is all lining up pretty well. But how do we know that the Candis in these are not just other people? I mean, how many people could be named Candi?
Like I had mentioned, RayLikeSunshine had done a lot of backtracking to find marriage records and figuring out that there was a Candi married to this person and a Candi married to this person, and his question is, well, how do we know that they just weren't coincidentally married to 2 other women named Candi? He narrowed it down basically by her age and took what she had said in a previous podcast saying that she was around the age of 60 and lined it up with these Candis with the previous last names would also be around the same age. The only reason, again, I'm not actually showing all of this is because I just don't want to add too much personal identifying information for my own channel's sake. It can get a little dodgy, and I also don't want anybody to use this information to send any harassment. I don't condone that, and I don't think RayLikeSunshine would condone that either. Not to speak for him, but most people do not condone those things. Please don't do that. That's not what this video is for. The reason to go into so much detail is to make sure and be as positive as we possibly can be that these accusations hold weight, because when it's just a random faceless Reddit account making a comment, sometimes that can be disregarded. But in this case, it seems like it holds a little bit of weight to it.
The most damning evidence is that all of this is corroborated independently of all the facts that we just covered by someone who claims to be Candi's nephew.
You may have already seen what's going on in regards to Candi's past coming to light. I felt it warranted to address it here in this group. The facts being presented and confirmed that our 2 of her 4 husbands are registered sex offenders. Her nephew, who is speaking out of his own accord, was a victim to 2 of them and has stated that he has knowledge of several others, and that Candi not only did not protect these victims, but actively silenced them against seeking justice. Candi herself alluded to sexual violence towards her son in her book, although this didn't state details outright, and no confirmation of that has come to light that I have seen. That is his story to share or not share as he sees fit, and I hope no one puts him in a position that requires him to defend himself or join the conversation if he does not wish to. Candi has already made several posts with threats, deflections, and accusations against those who are posting these facts online. I personally have not seen that, and in a clip I do say that I haven't seen too many responses from her other than a clip or 2 that I am going to add into this, but I will try to find some of those posts. If I can't find any posts, take this how you will. What she has not issued is a denial in any form. There are those who are going to join the conversation, and I'm not here issuing any directives to how you choose to conduct yourself elsewhere online. What I am going to do is issue a word of caution. With anything you choose to say, please consider her children and her son in particular. Exposing hypocrisy is one thing, and mudslinging without thought to innocent bystanders is another. Please don't spread any information you have not confirmed to be true, thereby giving her fodder for a defamation suit. In this group, where I will hold firm to the rules, we will be respectful at all times. I haven't had to ban anyone yet, although one person has come close, so please don't be the one to get that award, because because this is a hot topic, I'm going to limit anything you want to share or discuss about this current situation here in the comments of this post only. I will delete any other posts made about it. To continued respectful discussion, Michelle.
Also, I can't find the comment, but her nephew does go by they, them, and she was also apparently mocking him for that.
This is pretty much where we're at with this situation. There are accusations within this post as well that we have not seen from the Reddit post mentioned earlier. This is a very serious situation. I'm here to still say these are just accusations. There are some very cryptic things going around about her right now. At this point, this is an elephant in the room that needs to be properly addressed on any and all platforms, not just with a Facebook post or in a Facebook comment. She needs to come out and say something about this one way or another, because this is horrifying. And it seems like something she doesn't like to really address in any of her content so far. At least at the time of recording this video, I haven't seen her address this directly.
Am under attack on all social media platforms by estranged children.
So this is one of the few clips that I personally have seen when responding to criticism. I don't know for sure if she's even responding to the criticism about these accusations, or if she's just responding to criticism in general from people who don't like the content she's making. Again, I believe that this is something she definitely needs to directly address to her primary audience.
And if you follow me, you have seen it, but the real thing is they're not going to stop me. They're not going to stop me from speaking up. They're not going to stop me from doing this podcast. They're not going to stop me from always having one thing in mind, and that is to offer anything I can that will help estranged parents and grandparents. So if you have been watching that and you have been supporting me, thank you. If you're watching this and you are one of the ones that have been part of that, I don't even know what to say to you. So
you don't know what to say. You should be saying whether or not this is true and clearing it up. I really don't want to say that she's dodging this, because again, this could just be in response to general criticisms. This was a clip I just so happened to find right before finishing this video up.
We will skip the comments of the week, because actually it would just make me really sad to start reading them again.
If this is in regards to the accusations being made, there's a lot you should be saying. You should be saying whether or not it's true or false. It very much seems verified, I guess is the right word, that she was at least married to two of these people. The other accusations, I think they need to be addressed, and by not doing so, it looks really, really bad. If she is threatening other people and being nasty to other people on her Facebook who are calling her out for this instead of directly addressing this, that is also bad. They are something that, in my opinion, at least deserve an explanation. Because if this is truly related to anything regarding her child not talking to her, then she's leaving out some crucial details, and that's really bad. And I would not blame somebody for not wanting to associate with her or continue a relationship with her if this was going on, especially if they were affected, allegedly. Again, accusations. So yeah, what are your thoughts on all of this? I really just wanted to come in and talk about this for a moment. I know this wasn't a super big deep dive of a video, but I really just wanted to talk to you about this. This is something that's been getting under my skin, and I looked into it a little bit, and wow, I am genuinely shocked with how many more people are continuing to do the same thing that Doormat Mom has been doing for quite a while at this point. Again, I'll leave that video linked in the description as well if you want to learn a little bit more about my findings on her particularly. My advice is, if you have children, treat them with the respect that you expect to be given. Just because they are children doesn't mean that they are less human. What you do in front of or to a child as a child is something that they likely will remember, at least to some extent, and treating them poorly because they don't have the ability to advocate for themselves at a young age the way that they would as an adult can come back around. And when it does, the I don't remembers, the that never happened, the you're misremembering, all of that is something that most likely will not fly and most likely will damage your child further. And if you are somebody who just has a lot of vitriol for your child, adult child, for not communicating with you, that you feel the need to make a whole TikTok page about it. I know a lot of them are against it, but really I think therapy would be the way to go in trying to sort some things out, because if you genuinely care about the relationships and your children, doing some inner work might help. And I understand not every single case is the same. Every situation has its own unique details. My opinion is that you as the parent are responsible for the way you raise your children. You are responsible for the mistakes that you make, and deflecting and dodging any type of responsibility for that later on, and responding with anger or inability to take ownership of that, and treating your children horribly, breaking boundaries, harassing them. I would say that doing these types of videos after they ask you to please leave them alone and go no contact would be breaking some form of contact in a way, and be further harassment, in my opinion. You could disagree with that if you wish, but there's a lot of things that are not okay here. Love itself isn't enough to be a good parent. You have to put effort, you have to put responsibility, you have to put accountability, you have to grow and change as your child does, and work on things, and learn how to be responsible with that. Is that redundant? Responsible with that responsibility? All parents are going to make mistakes. It depends on how you handle those afterwards. And those are my thoughts. Thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Thank you so much to everybody supporting me over on Patreon and through YouTube memberships. I greatly appreciate it. I just wanted to pop back in here again and say thank you so much to Balessa for sponsoring today's video. And also do not forget that if you use my link in the description below to sign up, you will receive a free toy or a gift card for one. I will see you again very soon in another video. We have a lot to talk about, and I have a very short amount of time to do so. I've been trying really hard to get more videos out, but getting sick really threw my plans off the rails there, so trying to get back into that. I'll see you later.